It's time for the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth, financial literacy educator and speaker, entrepreneur, and chairman of the board of Bank Information. Take charge of your financial future with Your Personal Bank. Now here's Ference Toth.
Welcome to the Your Personal Bank Show. And, in this show, I always like to try to bring some of the current events into play and kind of tie it in with our money, how it affects our money in terms of earning it, keeping it, and then having enough for retirement, obviously, and then being able to pass something on to the next generation, right? And we've had an extraordinary amount of political events and things that have been going on in terms of, really changing, in a lot of ways, changing the way things have been, and certainly in the recently, or the way they have been now. And a lot of this really does affect, again, it affects us, it affects our money, it affects our ability to earn it, keep it, pass it on, right? The first and foremost one, obviously, that I've brought up and discussed are taxes. There's a lot of talk about tax increases going on. I think, for the most part, that's unfortunate. And first of all, and then secondly, it really it shows, how should I put it? It really shows a lack of financial literacy on the part of many people when they think that increases in taxes, for example, are a good thing. A lot of people have bought into the narrative that, taxes on the rich or taxes on the corporations or things like that will only affect those entities. And I've shared that many, many times on the show that, for example, an increase in a corporate tax increase is not going to affect the corporation because, one, if they do have to pay more taxes, all they're going to do is pass on the extra expenses to the consumers, you or I, or reduce expenses, which could mean loss of jobs and things like that, benefits, whatever. Or they're going to find other ways to either skirt the tax rules or go overseas or any other ways, depending on the size of the business and the sophistication of their tax planning. I've worked with a number of corporate clients, and I've worked with a number of very sophisticated tax attorneys in my career. And I can tell you that the level of sophistication, if you're willing to spend the money, there's a level of sophistication out there that can significantly reduce taxes, okay? And the more you have, the more you can benefit. So these bigger businesses are not affected by these increases in taxes, not directly. It actually affects the medium and smaller businesses much more, impacts them much more. They have less resources to pay and hire sophisticated tax attorneys. They have less ability to, set up a corporate headquarters overseas or things like that, right? So it really impacts the small business owner. The average mom and pop person gets affected more than, or smaller medium business than the big businesses do. Here's a novel concept. I wish we'll see if there's any see if this will ever come to pass. But how about eliminating all the loopholes in the tax codes? I'm not just talking about for corporations. I'm talking about across the board for everybody. I was a huge fan way back when, there's some years ago, some decades ago now, where the flat tax had gained some popularity. We'll put it that way. I was a huge fan of it because of its sheer simplicity. Whatever the tax rate would be, I think at that point there was a lot of talk of 15%. Say after the first X amount of income, the first $30,000 or $50,000 a year annual income is just tax-free. Okay, so that takes care of the lower income folks. Anything over that point, you pay a certain rate. Let's say it was 15% or whatever it is. And that's it. There's no deductions. There's no loopholes. There's no... And, the corporations would, the bigger businesses, again, they would pass that on to the consumers. But the folks that actually did earn more would actually pay more if they didn't have the loopholes or all the different deductions that can be done. Now, there's a lot of reasons why it never came to pass. One of the biggest reasons is our politicians and our elected officials and our bureaucratic leaders would lose a lot of power if there was a flat tax. Because the reality is a lot of their power comes from giving breaks or discounts or benefits to certain groups that support them, right? So the system encourages the political chaos that we have now. And that's a shame. Money is power, right? So I think a flat tax would be a phenomenal idea. It would take a lot of power away from a lot of people. It would put a lot of tax attorneys and CPAs out of business. We'd need a lot less IRS agents. Folks like myself would probably have a lot less to do. A lot of financial advisors and people like that. But, I don't see any of those things as being negatives. And, I am a financial guy. I see that all as positive. Certainly would be positive for pretty much everybody. Okay. It would make life so much simpler, and it would take a lot of power out of the hands of a lot of people like politicians that most of us, the vast majority of Americans, dislike or don't agree with anyway. I mean, what has been the popularity, or I should, maybe popularity is a good word, but the positive numbers for Congress for the last decade or more? I mean, has it hit 20%? I mean, in other words, something like 80% disapproval ratings for Congress. Okay, and those are some of the main people that benefit from the tax code the way it is, the convoluted thousands and thousands of pages that we have, and it gives them, it's their ability to add or delete things from that gives them a source of a lot of power. And most of us don't like what they're doing. So how is that a bad thing? So a flat tax would be a great solution. And I guess what I'm talking about, why I'm talking about some of these things is I've been bringing up a number of these current events, political issues, again, typically revolving around, us, our freedoms, our money, that kind of thing. And each time I've thought to kind of back off of the discussion, I've been encouraged by people to continue. I've also had some folks that have been encouraged by what some of the things I've been saying, which is great. I've had some folks that I can see and have stated that they think it's too late. It's already, we're on a downward spiral that's we're not going to recover from. They may be right. It's discouraging, certainly at times. And I think as Thomas Paine said, this is a time that tries men's souls. That was a famous writing that he wrote and George Washington read to the troops during a time when they were, I think at Valley Forge and kind of a very, very low spirits. I think for those that are lean towards more of the conservative side of things, certainly the fiscal conservatives like I am, the folks who like freedom, I'm more of an independent or, that type of thing. Just kind of want to be left alone. Let me do my thing. You know what I'm saying? These are tough times and these are discouraging times. I freely admit that. And when you're having a situation where there's a lot of people that are even afraid to speak up for what they believe in because they're afraid of the repercussions or maybe losing their job or any number of things, these are discouraging times. But at the same time at that, every time I start to get a little bit discouraged, I see signs of hope. And I'm seeing more, as it's kind of interesting, as time is going forward here, I have to admit, when Biden was elected, I wasn't overly happy about it, okay? But I wasn't overly concerned either because, what he said he was going to do, right? Be a moderate. That quickly, that changed the first day. When he started doing all those executive orders, shutting down the Keystone Pipeline and the border wall on the first day, for example, which I knew both of those would turn into some serious problems. one, gas prices, oil prices would go up, and we'd probably start to lose our energy independence, which is both bad things for the economy and for our country. The open border strategy basically has, frankly, has become an unmitigated disaster. And no surprise by anyone who understands immigration. Again, I'm a first generation. My dad escaped from Hungary. The Soviets, when they got out of hand, right? They were being overbearing. He left. He escaped. I understand. I've got family history in that of what it's like with a overzealous government. So my point is, I was quite frustrated and actually was getting quite discouraged in many ways. But as many of the woke left or the leftist agenda or whatever you want to call it, all these changes that are occurring, the signs of hope and encouragement are getting stronger and stronger. And the reason I say that is it's as they keep pushing harder in the cancel culture and attacking our right of free speech and everything else, more and more people are getting fed up. See, we as a country have a long history of freedom of speech. We have the Bill of Rights and all kinds of things like that, right? So when we get attacked on those kind of things, and we start getting attacked repeatedly, and we see things like crazy things like Major League Baseball changing their all-star game, and just because of a Georgia voting rule. I mean, what the heck should they have anything to do with that? You know what I'm saying? That impacts more and more people. I mean, particularly when you see it in places like that, where like baseball, where a lot of folks enjoy baseball or sports or other just things like that because of the fact they are a distraction. They're an area that's free of politics or have been, because they don't want to have to deal with all the serious things in life for a while, and they want a break. So it's a distraction. And when those get imposed upon and they basically overreach, doing too much, too far, too fast, and the pendulum swings. It always does. And when this gets pushed so hard, so fast, frankly, the repercussion is going to be equally as serious, if not more so. So I'm going to talk about some more of these things in the next segments as we go into this further and talk about a little bit of how this affects us, our money, our future, our retirement, all those types of things. So I really encourage you to stay tuned. But I frankly am much more encouraged today than I have been even a month ago. Okay? So stay tuned. Don't miss it.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show, and today we're talking about some of the bigger picture things that are going on, current events and whatnot that affect our money and our future and all those things. So, a couple of things I want to touch on are probably two of the big issues that have been really dominating the news, I guess you might say. The immigration situation, obviously, at our border. It's out of control. It's chaos. It's a disaster. I don't know any other way to put it. And the only positive I can see from this is that a lot of the polls and stuff like that, something around 75% of Americans are very negative, very frustrated, very angry about how the current administration is handling and, well, frankly, caused this border crisis. By not discouraging, at the very least, in fact, frankly, in many ways, both overtly and covertly, encouraging desperate people to come to this country, is fraught with peril. It's so inhumane. I'm glad to see that most Americans, I mean, frankly, the few that think this is good, my opinion is they don't have any idea what's really going on. They're not paying any attention. They don't understand how desperate people coming from impoverished countries are willing to risk literally their lives for a better life, or their kids' lives. And many of those, they're dealing with human traffickers and sex traffickers and all kinds of the dregs of society. These are some of the most horrible people that exist in this world. And they or their kids are in the hands of these people, and horrendous things happen. Plus, it's fraught with danger. It's a long trip. It's dangerous. Again, to even subtly encourage somebody like that shows such a lack of humanity. I find it hard to fathom. And I'm saying this as the son of an immigrant. I've said this many times. My dad escaped Hungary from the Soviets. He risked his life, literally, to get out of there and get away. Now, frankly, from some of the family stories, he was one of the demonstrators. He was one of the troublemakers from the Soviet standpoint. If they had gotten a hold of him, he might have not have lived anyway. So, although, yes, he risked his life, if he hadn't left, he might not have been alive either. So it's almost like, what choice do you have, right, at that point? But that's how serious this type stuff is. And it's putting out any kind of false hope is damaging, it's dangerous, it's inhumane, it's sad. And thankfully, most Americans understand that. Even majority of Democrats, independents, and minorities, and immigrants all agree, the majority, that this is bad. I'm pro-immigration. Gosh, my dad was one, right? But I'm pro-legal immigration. And whenever you talk to anyone, almost without exception, you talk to somebody who is an immigrant, a legal immigrant, or the family of a legal immigrant, they're almost universal in their agreement that pro-legal immigration, negative to illegal immigration. For one thing, it's just a basic matter of fairness. My dad had to go through the whole process. He had to escape one country, get to another. He did get political asylum. He went through the process. It took him like 5 years or so to become a U.S. citizen, to jump all the hoops and do the process of and he was a proud American as a result. He did it the right way. And that's what our country is built upon. We're a country of laws, of doing things the right way. And when you or your family had to go through that to get here and do these things, and then you see somebody else just jump ahead of the line, do it illegally, there's a strong level of frustration there. And my hope is that enough people, again, right now, there's a vast majority who think this is being handled extremely poorly. And my hope is that they vote that way and let their voices be heard. This is ridiculous. And there's a lot of political reasons behind it and a lot of business reasons behind it. Let's just be real. If our federal government wanted to stop border crossings and people coming across the border, today they could. They have the capability. They were doing it a few months ago. It's just the leadership doesn't have that desire or that will. Why? You have to ask the question, why? They have in their mind, it's kind of interesting, so many of the Democratic leaders that we have up there right now, I find this interesting. The leadership, you take the House, the House leader, Nancy Pelosi, it's from San Francisco, one of the most liberal parts of the country. We have the Senate majority leader from New York, Schumer. Again, one of the most liberal parts of this country. Why are the people in leadership? This is a question as I've often said out loud and thought, and maybe, some people get worked up about it, but you know what? Let's be real. Why does it seem the leadership are coming from some of the most liberal-leaning places in the country? What happened to the moderate Democrats? Where are they? I don't think they've just disappeared. There used to be a majority. I think they still are, in my opinion. Why are they being so silent? What do the most liberal parts have over them? Why aren't they standing up? I say that about conservatives. I mean, they're starting to. That's what I'm saying. This is where I'm getting some positive hope. Okay? So where I'm feeling like better about things going forward, because I see a lot of areas where people are just getting fed up. I said this in a previous show. I said, for somebody to resort to name calling or just calling you a racist because they don't agree with your position, well, frankly, that's just immature. And it's an immaturity that we see, I saw with my kids when they were 2 and 3 years old. When you have a 2 or 3 year old throwing a temper tantrum, how do you respond to that? You just put them in the corner, let them throw their fit, and you tell them, hey, when you're ready to calm down and act reasonable and be mature, then we can talk about it. So if somebody, stop being afraid of somebody calling you names. I mean, what did we used to say as kids? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me, or something to that, right? When have we gotten to be a society where somebody name calls you something, and it's just so hurtful, it's the end of the world? No, call them. How do you respond to a bully? It's quite simple. You stand up to them. And a bully can be a schoolyard bully that punches you in the nose, or it could be somebody that calls you names or calls you a racist or something else like that. Look, when you're having an honest discussion with somebody and their response is name calling because they don't have a good, honest response or an adult response, a mature response, then call them on that. Say, you know what? Stop being immature. Stop name calling. And when you have calmed down enough and can have an adult conversation, I'll be happy to discuss it with you. Until then, have a nice life. They can't bully you anymore then, right? We just got to stand up for ourselves. That's all. And folks, take heart. You're in the majority. Most of the people agree with you. We just got to get them to speak up and stand up for themselves and stand up to these bullies. That's it. Stay tuned in the next segment. We're going to talk about this further.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
Okay, we're back. We're talking about some of the bigger picture items that affect us, our lives, our business, our jobs, our money. I was just talking in the last segment. If you missed it, I would really encourage you to go to yourpersonalbank.com and check it out. By the way, you can listen to any of the previously recorded shows. And I was going to say, I really haven't talked about how Your Personal Bank works or anything like that on this show. Again, go to the yourpersonalbank.com. Go to the previous shows. And you can listen to what, like the last show, I talked a lot about the common questions and misconceptions. So you missed it, go back to it, or any of the previous ones to see how it goes. Today's about the bigger picture items. And the last segment, I was even talking about how do you respond to a bully? You stand up to them. In fact, a lot of this cancel culture, woke stuff, all this, it's a small percentage of people. It's nowhere near a majority, nowhere close, who are vocal, loud, and frankly bullies. And people got to start learning to stand up to bullies. If you were in the schoolyard, somebody punched you in the nose or somebody kept picking on you because they were stealing your lunch money, how did you resolve it? I mean, guys, think about it a minute. How did you get that resolved? Eventually, you either put up with it and kept getting bullied, or eventually you punched them back in the nose, right? And it's ironic. It's interesting how when you stand up to a bully, how often they just fold because they don't know how to respond to that. Now, I'm not saying you literally should, I'm not saying you should walk up to them and punch somebody in the nose. Okay, please don't misunderstand me. And I hope somebody doesn't take that out of context, okay? No, what I mean is standing up to a bully means we're in a war of ideas and a war of words. And if somebody you're having a discussion with or whatever, and they disagree with you, and then they basically just resort to name calling. I mean, that's what you see happen over and over again. Why does somebody resort to name calling? Because they've lost the argument. They don't have a response. You've made a logical argument, and there is no response. So they resort to name calling you or trying to call you racist or all that. Folks, stop being afraid of that. Give me a break. Okay? It's just name calling. It's immature. It's what 2 and 3 year olds do. And you treat them exactly like you would your 2 or 3 year old. Okay? You just say, look, I'm sorry you feel that way. There's no reason to resort to name calling. Call them out. Call them out what it is. No reason to resort to that. And when you're ready to be calm enough to have an adult, rational conversation, I'll be happy to discuss it with you. Until then, have a good life. Bank gone. You don't have to keep engaging. Walk away. It's okay. All right? That's how we win this, okay? We have the better argument. Freedom is the right argument. Censorship is not, okay? Boycotts and censorships and all these other things are not the right argument. Freedom is. And I guess that's where my hope is as more and more people get frustrated. And by the way, I mean, as sad as it is to see all the different sports, for example, sports leagues just going nuts and falling for this cancel culture stuff, and it's bringing people in that were not wanting to get involved, frankly. And many people, they were just enjoying their sports because that was an escape. They didn't want to have to deal with this stuff. And, this cancel culture, whatever it is forcing them to deal with it. It's shoving it in their face. Well, that's just going to make a lot of people really frustrated and angry. And they're going to respond, and there's going to be a backlash. And frankly, we all understand how pendulums swing. Typically, if you push too hard one way, it's going to swing right back the other, and it might be much harder and more severe. I think we're going to see a severe backlash. I already see a lot of people and institutions and folks fighting back and standing up, and that's encouraging. As we go forward, more and more do that. You're going to realize the bullies of the world can't. It's a house of cards. They can't hold you down. They can't stop you. We have midterm elections in 18 months. I am more and more hopeful that we're going to see a lot of this craziness, in my opinion, this chaos, these people who hate America and hate freedom, okay, they're gone. And if, it's the tightest of majorities right now. My gosh, the Senate is 50-50. Give me a break. And the House is what, 7 or 8? The Democrats have a 7 or 8 person advantage, which is one of the slimmest majorities in decades and decades. So it doesn't take much. It's not going to take much at all, but there could be a severe backlash. And frankly, they deserve it. People who, I guess that's what I want to talk about in the next segment is, I'm offended. I've gotten to the point where I was frustrated. Then I started realizing, you know what, I'm going to stand up and stand for what I believe in. But now I've gotten to the point where I'm offended. And what I mean by that is, how dare you try to take away my freedoms? And I think that's where a lot of people are moving towards. And we're going to talk about that here in the next segment. So I encourage you to stay tuned. Don't miss this.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
Okay, we are rounding third, and we're going to wrap this up. And like I said, I'm talking about a lot of the bigger picture items that have happened, current events, politically and whatever, how it affects us, our money, and that type of thing. And really what I'm talking about today is the hope and encouragement that I've been seeing more and more as the left or whatever are pushing the boundaries of changing the way our country has been fundamentally as a country for the past 200 and whatever years, 200 plus years. And they're just trying to fundamentally make some massive changes. And again, initially I was a little shocked, surprised. I guess it was was it the 5 forms of grief kind of process? I don't know. But I was a little shocked, surprised. Then I was just disappointed, got into a discouragement period for a little while. And then I started thinking about and realizing, It's time to stand up and fight for our rights. These freedoms that we've been given by our forefathers, they fought for them. And then they've been preserved that freedom generation after generation. I think it's Thomas Jefferson, I believe, don't quote me on it, who talked about where each generation needs to fight for their freedom. Well, this looks like this is our generation's fight to maintain our freedoms, because freedoms aren't free. And what I see happening is I see more and more people and more institutions stepping up for our rights, states stepping up and protecting the rights of their citizens because the federal government's not. Things like that. Some of these, I like some of the, like the Georgia laws, the voting law that was passed. I think it's awesome. It's simple. And something like 75% of all Americans agree with this, that voter ID should be required when you vote. By the way, something like 60% of Democrats, 60 or I think 70% of Democrats, the last poll I saw, agree with that. Something like 60% of minorities. I mean, you pick any choice group you want. Legal immigrants, the majority agree with that, okay? Here's the thing. If you're against voter ID to vote, that means you're for cheating. The only people against requiring an ID to verify who you are when you vote are the people that are for cheating or making cheating easier. It's just that simple. And the vast majority agree with that. That's a winning item. That's a winning ticket. And I'm hoping the majority of Americans stick with that and don't waver. Because here's the reality. I stated this on an earlier show. You have to show an ID to get a library card to check out a library book. This stuff with these Delta Airlines or MLB and things, it's just ridiculous because they require IDs to pick up tickets, for example, at the will call booth. I mean, IDs are required in our society in so many arenas. I mean, whether you want a subway ticket or you want to drive a car or anything else, or get a library book or go to a ball game or anything else, you have to show an ID. So these excuses that are made about voter IDs to vote being a problem or a challenge or disadvantage for any group of people are just ridiculous. It's just a charade for folks who want to make it easier to cheat. It's that simple. I mean, in fact, a lot of the things where they're saying certain groups would have a hard time with using a voter ID or they wouldn't be able to understand the rules. Folks, that is so condescending. If somebody said that to me, I would be angry beyond belief at them. What do you think I am, a village idiot? That I can't figure out how to show an ID or get one, and I'm an adult? I mean, that's such a condescending attitude. I'm shocked that a lot of the people that are in those groups don't. I mean, some are. That's the encouraging part. It should be universal. There should be a universal outcry. What do you mean we can't understand how to use an ID? We're not that stupid. We're smarter than that. Give us more credit than that. I mean, it's so condescending. But that's the position. That's the position a lot of our officials, our leaders, so-called, I say that very loosely, quote unquote, elected and otherwise, that's the position they take or the argument that they make. It's so ludicrous, I don't even think they believe it. Maybe some of them do. I don't know. But I can't imagine any intelligent human being believing that argument that people are too stupid to use an ID and it'd be a disadvantage. Give me a break. It just it reduces cheating. That's it. And that's the type of system we should have. In fact, we have observers around the world supervising and observing other elections around the world. And guess one of the number one requirements that they look for and encourage and make sure happen? Some sort of ID. So it's so ludicrous. And like I said, if something like 75% of Americans agree, I think this is a winning issue to finally say, you know what, enough's enough. This is ridiculous. We're not going to allow our elections to be taken over by nefarious characters who don't care about democracy, who don't care about fairness, don't care about the future of our country. In fact, in many cases, a lot of them would like to see it be changed dramatically or destroyed altogether. Okay? We're not going to allow those groups, those people, those entities to just cheat indiscriminately. This is still a country of the people, by the people, and for the people. And folks, that's where the real power is. It's with us, the people. Okay? It just, I just can't. That just, it drives me up a wall. How's that? And I guess what I want to touch on is I guess really kind of this last point I want to make is, I'm starting to in the last segment. And again, if you missed anything from before, go to yourpersonalbank.com. Check out any of the previous shows. If you want to learn how to take control of your money using the Your Personal Bank tool, go to the show. Any of the previous shows will explain to you, many of them, how this works. See, this whole premise of the show is about taking control of your life and taking control of your money again. Why follow the rules that are set in place by the government, by Congress, by your employer, Speaking of employers, I love this one. The whole thing with Coca-Cola. Here you have a company that's protesting or a Georgia election law, which I don't know why Coke should have anything to do with that. They're a worldwide corporation. Why should they really care how people vote in Georgia? But, that's another point. But frankly, by getting themselves involved with this, they've kind of shown that they're, frankly, leadership-wise, they're a horrible corporation who produce, frankly, a horrible product that's really bad for you. And now they've proven if it's I think it's more than half the country, but that's my opinion. Certainly millions, of people, they hate them. So they're a horrible company providing a horrible product. It's terrible for you. And they don't like you if you're against cheating on voting. They're for cheaters, but against non-cheaters. Go figure. Why would you support something like that? In fact, Coke might have just done a bunch of people a big favor, because if they're angry enough to finally give up their Coke habit, drinking Coke, that is, not Coca-Cola, that would be a good thing. You know what? They'd probably be healthier. They'd probably lose some weight, okay, and get healthier. Certainly you could switch to another brand of soda if you have to. But, wouldn't this be a good reason? I haven't drank soda. I can't even think in how long now, how many years it's been. I gave it up years ago because I recognized how bad it was for me. And I've lost weight. I'm in better shape. I feel better. I'm healthier. Why not this is a great opportunity. If you've been wanting to give up soda, do it. Now's the time. And Coke just did you a big favor. Maybe they gave you the motivation to push you over to get you to, throw it out. If you got any in the house, dump it down the sink, and don't go buy any more. If enough people do that, these companies might actually start waking up and listening to their consumers instead of just being, I don't know, no common sense. How's that? Just crazy, chaotic, no common sense. Okay. So again, how does this all affect us financially? If we don't stand up and we allow this chaos to continue, we're going to see the destruction of not only our country as we know it, but the companies. These companies don't seem to realize the damage that they could be causing by getting involved in this thing and pissing off, say, half their customers. Okay? There's things that are not necessary in life, like Coca-Cola. Okay? And it'd be pretty easy for a lot of people to decide they don't want it anymore. See, corporations and companies used to be focused on, whatever happened to the consumer is right. They would produce a product or service, and their goal was to accomplish, make a profit by producing a good product or service, right? Whatever happened to that? Now we're getting to the point where we've got companies just flat out abusing people, just saying abusive things, or we just hate you, we don't like you, we hate you, we don't want your business. But we'll take your money if we give it to you, if you insist on giving it to us. Why would you support that? I've wherever possible, I've chosen not to. I stated this in one of my previous shows. I haven't been on Facebook in months. I don't believe that it's a positive thing. When Twitter, I never really was, but that was easy to get rid of. I've even switched from, so many people Google stuff. I hardly ever use Google anymore. There's other search engines. GoDuckGo, I think, is one of them. I use SmartPage, I think it's called. It's out of the Netherlands. But, at least they're not into free, trying to hammer free speech. I haven't bought anything from Amazon, I can't remember how long now, since they shut down Parler, because I felt like that, again, an attack on free speech. I found something out. If you find an item on Amazon you like, you can go and most of the time search it elsewhere and get it directly from the company who makes it. And oftentimes, as good or better price or better service. Kind of interesting, isn't it? In fact, more and more companies are doing that. They're bypassing Amazon because Amazon takes a big chunk anyway. And guess what? The company you like and supporting is now making more profit because they're keeping all of it and they're not having to share with Amazon. Again, if more people do that, and I see more and more people talking about that, I feel it seems like that's happening. Hey, we have a voice. We can vote with our pocketbooks. We can vote with our votes. But we don't need to support things where they're openly attacking us and openly hating us, okay? And they're openly attacking our freedoms. And as I was starting to say in the beginning of the last segment, I'm getting to the point now where I'm getting very angry because my attitude is this: how dare you infringe upon my freedoms that I served in the military for? My dad escaped from a communist country to obtain for his family. And I'll bet in most people's cases, if you go back in your history, many of you have folks who've either served in the military somewhere or have family heritage history of where they came here to escape from somewhere else or come here because there was a better opportunity. Okay? And here's the thing. Even for those that came here in their family history, it wasn't, they didn't come voluntarily. I'll put it that way. They still ended up and landed in a place where there's more opportunity than just about anywhere else in the world. Now you have a choice. You can try to take advantage of that opportunity, or you can let somebody count on someone to take care of you like the government. And if you look at history and the history of human existence, you look at governments where they take care of the people, the socialistic, communistic, dictatorship-type governments, and you look at their lifestyle, and it's nowhere near. In fact, the poverty level here in most cases is better than the average in any of those cases. So as always, stay tuned to the Your Personal Bank Show and contact me at yourpersonalbank.com for more information.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. This show is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information. The presenter and guest on this program do not engage in legal, accounting, or tax advice. Professional advice regarding your situation should be sought if required. Products and riders may have limitations and may not be available in all states. Excessive unpaid loans may affect performance. Distributions may become taxable if not managed properly. Replacements may not be suitable for everyone. There may be charges when replacing coverage. Compare when considering a replacement. Dividend rates and baseline of credit rates may change. Contact yourpersonalbank.com for current rates.